I have always believed that it's high science, deep science, and a very scientific bent of mind and that research that is going to make us great. People look at us saying, they're not capable of innovating. Now,
Yeah.
I feel that this is one drug that should put India on the map of innovators.
Kiran, congratulations. Now everyone in this country is looking at this drug. And I just watched a Facebook video which Anil had put of Dr. Bilani, who's actually gone on to say that this is an elixir. And in Breach Candy Hospital, doctor was hospitalized and he came out after using the drug. Tell us more. We are all very curious to hear what is happening with this.
Well, Shraddha, I want to first say that this is a promising drug, and I don't want people to get too carried away because these are early days yet. And, these drugs are very, very complex drugs, and the disease itself is so complex that we must understand what we are doing, how we are using it, what are the kind of patients who will benefit from this drug, etc., etc. So I think what I would like to say is that the small trial we did was a proof of concept study, which gave us the hope and optimism that this drug actually can save lives. I
Yeah.
think that's what is very important for everyone to understand, that this is a very unique drug. And as we've understood how the virus, works and causes the kind of mortality, we realize that it's not the virus that is causing the death, but it's the cytokine release syndrome that is caused by the virus when it enters your body and it gets your immune system to be hyperactive. And in that hyperactive state, you get uncontrolled release of what are called as cytokines to fight the virus. And that uncontrolled release of cytokines is acting against your own body like an autoimmune disease and killing the patient, unfortunately. Now, the reason why we thought that this drug will probably have a good role to play is because we've understood the way it acts in many autoimmune diseases. We've actually tried this drug in psoriasis, in rheumatoid arthritis, in graft versus host disease, in acute asthma, and in lupus nephritis. All these are the indications in which this drug is and has been trialed. And the reason we thought that this would actually work in COVID is because we understand the science and the mechanism of action. It is an immunomodulator. It is it is well known that when the body is faced with any kind of invading antigen, that the body responds by activating its immune system to fight this invader. And we also know that in order to fight the invader, a lot of things are, the immune system does number of things. One is it produces antibodies. Then it also produces these cytokines. And these cytokines are known to also, be inflammatory in nature.
Mm.
Because that's the way the body also fights any invader. But when you get too much of it, then I think the body starts finding it difficult and you're almost attacking body cells in the process. So we felt that yes, this is a very good drug which could be, having an impact in this COVID cytokine release syndrome. That is why we did this small trial in the hospitals in Mumbai and Delhi, because at that time, those were the two hot spots when it came to.
Mm.
And so Nair Hospital, KEM Hospital, LNJP and AIMS in Delhi, they were the four centers that actually were involved in this trial. And what we did in the trial was we put 20 patients on the drug, which means that whatever the treatment they were giving to the patients, on top of that, we gave this drug. And in 10 patients, which was the control arm, we did not give this drug. We just gave them the best standard of care. And what we found at the end of that 1 month study for each patient was that the 20 patients who received the drug all recovered.
Wow.
And the 10 patients, 7 of them recovered, but 3 of them died.
Hmm.
Also found that in the arm that had the drug, the patients actually recovered faster than the patients who recovered in the second arm, arm B. So there were lots of interesting observations, but the trial size is very small. So obviously, it's wrong to extrapolate it at a larger level. But the beauty is, Shraddha, that many doctors have actually used this drug because it's an approved drug. They've used it in the real world setting. So just today we had a webinar where many doctors who have used this drug actually spoke about their experiences. And each one of those doctors had on an average treated 30 patients with this drug. And all of them had very positive things to say about this drug, saying that it is an amazing drug because it gives you the impact and response so fast. And you're seeing clearly that these patients' oxygen demand is going down, which means its inflammatory markers are going down, its inflammation is going down. Because as one of the doctors said, the biggest problem and challenge we have is that your lung passages and your alveoli, that is your lung
Hmm.
cells, are all getting inflamed. And because they're getting inflamed, your oxygen intake is also getting to be very poor. So once that inflammation disappears, which disappears quite fast, immediately you respond with better oxygen intake. So I think that's the thing that we need to really, focus on and see why is this drug working so well. And as all the doctors pointed out, a lot of people say, oh, can we use it as a prophylactic? You can't. This is to treat a condition that happens not in every patient. It happens only in about 5 to 10% max of people who contract coronavirus. So you should not use such drugs in that way. You should only use it in a very systematic way at the right time. So it's only when you know that this patient is getting into distress, when the oxygen levels are somehow becoming worse, and when the amount of oxygen you have to give the patient is only increasing, I think that's the time to give it because then you quickly see the response.
You've run this company for 40 years. And I'm being honest. I'm looking at solutions from America, from France, from London, from Russia. But here, India is doing it. What do you have to say about that?
No, that is what gives me the maximum amount of pride because I have always believed that it's high science, deep science, and a very scientific bent of mind and that research that is going to make us great.
Yeah.
We're always known to be an imitative country, which has been doing very well in terms of imitative drugs. But, people look at us saying, they're not capable of innovating. Now,
Yeah.
I feel that this is one drug that should put India on the map of innovators because I really believe this drug, apart from COVID, we've learned so much about this drug in the way it modulates the immune system, it addresses cytokine release storm. We've already used it it's being trialed in the US by our US partners in graft versus host disease, which is a huge unmet need. And it seems
Yeah.
working very well in that indication. So I think it's a great drug. I really, I've always believed in this drug. I licensed this drug from Cuba when even Cuba didn't know very much about the drug. And they also said, well, please, you're welcome to license this drug and do what you want with it. And we learned so much about the drug. We did a lot of research in Biocon. I licensed this drug in 2002. And remember, we did so much research in Bangalore with all our scientists trying to understand the mechanism of action. What is this antibody about? Where does it work? In fact, I think, know a lot about this drug more than anybody else in the world.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I think we've really understood this drug very well. And we've got a lot of scientific data on how this drug works. And I had always believed that this drug has huge potential. I was very disappointed, I must tell you, Shraddha, that when we actually developed the drug for psoriasis, and it's a great psoriasis drug. And I must tell you about this one anecdote where a scientist at ISRO in Bangalore, when I had gone for their satellite day celebrations, came up to me and said, Madam, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart because you have just transformed my life. And I was wondering why, what have I done?
Mm,
And he said, ALZUMAB, ma'am, this drug has changed my life. I was suffering from such bad psoriasis for years. And I tried every medication and nothing worked. And I used to be like a pariah. Nobody wanted to sit with me,
mm,
my family members. And he said, this doctor told me, why don't you try this new drug of Biocon? It's a very good drug and I know it will work very well. And Indian doctors are not using it, but I think you should use it. I'm your doctor and I'm telling you, try and use it. So he said, I used it, and ma'am, within 1 month my psoriasis just disappeared. And he said,
wow.
today it is 3 years since I took your drug and I don't have any signs of psoriasis. Now this is the kind of drug it is, right? And I'll tell you, I'm very disappointed in the Indian dermatologists. Very few people were willing to use this drug. Everyone wanted to only use Western medicines by multinational companies. I said, listen, this is your drug. Create the evidence, create the data that you want to see, and share it with the world. That is the exciting research opportunity I'm providing you. And I said, I've done the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials in psoriasis in India. You can see the data. It's very, very promising. It's very good. I've shown you that it can actually endure the response for much longer than any Western drug. But they wanted to see a very rapid response,
Mm,
which Western drugs show you. They show you a very rapid response, but you have to keep using the drug. It doesn't give you endured response. Whereas my drug is maybe delayed by a few weeks, but it is an enduring response. So the cost of therapy is much lower, and the way the patients benefit is much better, because my drug regulates it from the top downwards, whereas other drugs only mop up some of those inflammatory cytokines, but as soon as you stop the drug, it comes back again, if you know what I mean.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, so I'm saying I got so disillusioned that in my own country, they don't respect this drug. So I said, I think I'll have to take it out of the country. So that's why I licensed it to a US company. And I said, you start creating value for this drug. And they are beginning to create a lot of value for the drug. And they're very excited with the way it is performing in many, many of these areas where there is a huge unmet need. And in fact, they've got an orphan label status because it is such an important need. Now, when COVID happened, and when we showed through this small proof of concept pivotal study that it actually works in getting rid of the cytokine
Mm,
release syndrome, they got very excited, and they are now planning to do a study, a clinical trial in the US to get it into the US, for the use in US. So I think that's a very exciting opportunity. So I, for one, feel very proud that for the first time we have an original made in India drug,
yeah,
which we will take to the world. Also, it's about saving lives. It's about saving lives at a time when the whole world is helpless.
yeah,
I must also say that, our Cuban partners actually also started working on this molecule. And they also have reported very, very promising data. So I'm really happy that this drug is working. It's making a difference. And, I'm really proud of the fact that this is an original drug and from India, a very unique drug with a very unique profile, and it is saving lives. I'm very, very hopeful. I'm very encouraged. I'm very confident that we will do it.
yes,
Hoge kabyab, but not.
yes,
I want
yeah,
to basically make sure that we focus on this drug and really make it into the drug it ought to be, because I
yeah,
really believe in this drug. I know I've got a lot of flack from many people, in many from many quarters, who have said, "Oh, this is hardly a trial, and you've done it very badly, and this is not something that you should be boasting about." But I don't think those people understand why I am so proud. I'm
yeah,
proud because we know a lot about this drug. I'm proud because I made a judgment call on a very scientifically based hypothesis, and it worked out in that small proof of concept study. Of course, we have to do larger trials, and we are
yeah,
going to do it not only in the US, but even we are going to actually start a phase 4 study on a few hundred patients who are, going to be treated with this drug. But apart from that, I also want people to understand that as of today, okay, a little over 500 patients have already benefited from this drug.
Yeah.
On today's webinar, you would have seen that if you just count the number of patients who have received this drug just in that webinar, it's over 100. Okay. So every patient said, oh, I treated over 30 patients. I treated over the. So if you just add those up, you can see it's over 100 patients who have all, and every one of those comments that those doctors had to give was so encouraging. They talked about their experience, about how, they were struggling. In fact, one of the doctors from Sholapur said that I was struggling with mortality, and everyone was blaming us, saying, why is your mortality rate so high? And I just didn't have any armaments with which to even bring down the mortality, and I didn't know why people were getting into that kind of a distress situation. And then I heard about itolizumab, and he said he had a friend in Biocon. I must find out who that is. He asked him to please help to get this drug, and apparently he then got the drug, and for the last 1 month he's been using this drug, and he says my mortality rate has come down so sharply thanks to that. I really think that this is the kind of drugs we need to deal with the mortality rate. So I think people who are criticizing and commenting and trying to say that, oh, you have no business to talk about this drug, they should understand that what drives me is not about profiteering like many people
Yeah.
are, but it is about saving lives, and it is about putting India on the map of innovation.
Let's wait for mass trial. Let's wait for things to happen, but let's not ignore these numbers and this step, because I think if it had happened anywhere in the world, people would have been like shouting and
Yeah.
talking and celebrating. So why not
Yeah,
us?
unfortunately, Shraddha, in our country, anything like this happens, there are enough people to bring it down. Whereas if I was in the US, believe me, everyone would have been saying, wow, fantastic. I'm sure this drug is going to work. I'm sure this drug is a great drug. I've had a lot of support from people. But here I find there is too much of negativity. I really want to see more positivity in India, because
But Kiran,
we have
you have
so
huge
much
followers.
potential. No, we have so much potential in
Yes.
the country. I see young scientists, I see them research, I see researchers in our academic institutes, really bright people, but we don't celebrate them. We don't give
Yeah.
them that opportunity to perform and innovate. And that's why because there's so much negativity. I really think we need to see more positivity in everything we do. Everything.
Yeah.
When we write a report, we keep saying, there is a need, there's a huge lack of this, there's a huge deficit of this, instead of saying there is a need for this.
Yeah.
What I mean, it's all about how you look at things. If you keep poking, the whole point that, oh, we lack this, we have a huge deficit, we just don't have this. But instead of that, if you look at it by saying, we need this, we need to augment, we need to provide, we need to enable. If you talk like that, it is much
Yeah.
positive.
Especially in Karnataka, you are the Bangalore voice, Bengaluru voice. It's growing. What do you have to say the way we are dealing with COVID, and what should be done? I read in your blog you've written about contain, control, and cascade.
So, Shraddha, I am really concerned about the way this whole COVID crisis has not been managed well. Unfortunately, here I have to show some negativity, but also have positivity, because I know we can get it, and we can course correct, and we can bring it under control. If you remember, up until the end of May, Bengaluru and Karnataka was doing an exemplary job.
Yeah.
Everything was managed in a very thoughtful manner. People were being tracked down, and every outbreak was being completely contained, and we were creating buffer zones, and we were doing fantastic contact tracing. Each person, they would have a 1:40 ratio. So they were doing contact tracing to up to 40 people, which was incredibly high by any world standard. And whilst the rest of the country was hardly able to do 1:2,
Yeah.
1:40. And we actually hardly saw any cases. Every day on an average, there would be maybe 2 or 3 or 4 cases. And then maybe there
Yeah.
was one death or something like that. So that was the situation which was so much under control till end of May. But then when we started lifting the lockdown in mid-May, um, for some unknown reason and unexplainable reason, the testing rate started coming down. Okay, and I was wondering why. Why should we test less? We should test more. Because when you open up, you should be testing more, right?
Yeah.
And you should be doing a lot of surveillance testing, which was not being done. And then the contact tracing started dropping to sort of the national average of 1:2 or 1:3, which I thought, what is happening? So someone somewhere or a bunch of people got it all wrong. I think they started becoming complacent. I heard
Yeah.
a person tell me, oh, we've sealed our borders, and actually initially the numbers were coming because of the migrants. But now that we've sealed our borders, we don't expect any more infections to come in from neighboring states. And that was completely wrong. I kept telling that person, I said, no, you're making a mistake. This is about people congregating. You must be very strict about certain protocols. Mask wearing must be made compulsory. You must not allow a congregation of more than 2 or 3 people, because the moment you start allowing gatherings, you're going to have a lot of trouble. And please do not open up malls and things so fast. But nobody listened. Everybody said, no, no, we'll do everything, it will be fine. And then before we knew it, we were out of control.
Yeah.
And today we are in a very serious situation because we have amongst the highest number of daily cases in the country. And now our death rates are also mounting, which we never used to have. In the past, we used to have 1 or 2 deaths, if at all, per day. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like 50, 70, 80, 100 deaths a day. We've never seen this level. And Bangalore, look at Bangalore, how bad it is.
Yeah.
I mean, what we are really concerned about is the test positivity rate. There are two metrics, Shraddha, that we have to really focus on. One is called PPR, okay? And the other is called CFR. I'll explain what it is. One is the test positivity rate, and the second is the case fatality rate. Now, let me explain why these two numbers are very important. Test positivity rates means for every 100 tests, how many people are testing positive. That gives you an indication of the spread of the virus. In the past, our test positivity rate used to be 1 or 2%, which is pretty good, which means it hasn't spread. So even though you're testing 100 people, okay, only 1 or 2 are testing positive. This was up to May end. This is how good it was, the test positivity rate. After May, this number has zoomed up to 30.
Wow.
Of 100 people, 30 people are testing positive, which means it has spread.
Yeah.
We were always having this debate about community spread or local spread. Anyway, it has spread. Okay. So that is not a good thing to happen, which means Bangalore has a huge load of infection. Now, test positivity rate is only pertaining to people whom you're testing. And most of these people are at least mildly symptomatic. Number of asymptomatic people tested is hardly a large number because you're not really testing those people. So if you were to test asymptomatic people, probably the number will be even higher. Okay. So that is a worry. How do we bring down this? You must have below, 5% if you really want to open up in a big way, or at least 10% if you want to open up to somewhat of an extent under a lot of control. But to have anything over 10% of TPR is very dangerous. And right now it is a very dangerous thing to do, to open up in such a big way when your TPR rate is not down. Okay. Then comes CFR. CFR, again, Bangalore was 0.2, 0.3 in the till end of May, which was fantastic.
What is CFR?
What you want. Today, you're creeping up to 3% of fatality rate, which is not at all good. The national average is around that. No, now you got 26,000. It's about 2.6. You just crossed 1 million. and you got 26,000 deaths, right? So it's roughly 2.6. We have already crossed the national average. We are at 2.8.
Wow.
There are some states which have got 3.5 and 3.6, but the ideal number to have is below 1%. Now we have to get those numbers down. And that is why your treatment of patients, the way you triage your patients, all that has to be well thought out. It was being done very well up to May. Now you can see all your hospitals are overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Up until May, hardly any rooms were occupied. I know in our hospital, in Devi Shetty's hospital, we had a COVID hospital where up until May, we hardly had one or two people a day as patients. So it was empty. Today it's full, and there's no way we have got place for accommodating anybody.
Yeah.
So that tells you that this case fatality rate has to be brought down. And you should not just send all patients to the hospital. See, people who need oxygen, they are the only ones who should be in hospital. Those who don't need that kind of oxygen should be in a step down quarantine center, like a hotel converted into a COVID center or whatever. But that's the way you have to think and plan.
I want to ask you, and this is for everyone, and I'm now asking for the young people across the country. In Bangalore, there are so many layoffs happening, furloughs are taking place. I want to ask you, if I have to ask you, and if you have to tell people that from your journey, where, like consistently performing, consistently delivering, consistently being there, speaking, being yourself, how have you done that? And how can we learn from this?
See, first and foremost, Shraddha, I feel that every one of us must be driven by some sense of purpose. Why am I doing this? What joy do I get? What satisfaction do I get? Right? So for me, saving lives is a very deep sense of purpose, because I know that if there is a legacy I want to leave behind, it is that made a difference to global healthcare, right? Because
Mm.
the whole point was there's so much inequity in healthcare across the world. Can I do something about it? Can I provide affordable access? Can I really fight the system that draws these inequities? Can I remove that unfair bias and prejudice and perception hurdles that all of us from this part of the world have to overcome?
Yes.
So that first I've overcome that prejudice of being a woman, right? So I over that gender bias. Now can I get over that bias of coming from India, or anything coming from India is suspicious, is substandard, is to be questioned. I mean, these are the people who are criticizing me even now, right? These are the kind of
Yeah.
people who are even making it worse, saying, "Oh, what Kiran is doing, what Biocon is talking about." I mean, it's by world standards, it's rubbish. Don't even
Yeah.
what they're saying, and I feel very hurt, saying, "Look, guys, you don't even know what this whole thing is about. Please don't discredit us. We are trying to build a name for Indian and Indian science. Don't discredit that, for God's sake." So I'm saying that is my sense of purpose. So when you have a sense of purpose to prove yourself and to prove a point, I think it keeps you driven a lot and it keeps you engaged. So I always tell young people, you have to be driven by some sense of purpose. If you're doing it in an aimless way, I don't think you will remain steadfast.
Yeah.
You're very driven by a purpose and a mission, then I think you will remain steadfast. And I
Yeah.
mission has always been, I want to put India on the map of the uh, innovation, innovation map of the world. I want to put Indian science right up there. I want to give that opportunity for Indian scientists and researchers and engineers to be right there amongst the world's best. So that is the way I've gone about my purpose. I mean, I can tell you it is very challenging. It's not easy to remove prejudices. It's not easy to remove biases. In fact, one of the things I keep hearing about from various quarters, India is a country that most people don't like to partner with because there's a big perception that IP is not safe.
Yeah.
I hear about. And I'm saying, guys, I'm creating IP. This is my IP I'm giving to the world, right? I want to make sure that they realize that India is capable of creating very high value IP. These are the kind of things I'm trying to build and build that name for India so that people don't, push us over. What I mean is, so that
Yeah.
is a very important purpose and mission for me. I want to represent India and say, hey guys, India is not what you make it out to be. India is a strong country. We have great scientists, great researchers. We are trying to innovate for the world. Give us an opportunity. Don't discredit us so fast.
How are you spending? We are all very curious. How do you spend your day? What do you do? And during this lockdown?
So, Shraddha, all of us know that during this shutdown, we've all become, digital and savvy, and we are all thrown into this virtual world. There are really good things about the virtual world and not such great things about the virtual world. But the one good thing about the virtual world is you can really stay connected with people all over the world. I mean, I'm sure that you're finding it much easier to
Yeah.
have these interviews with anyone you want to,
Yeah.
used to be in the past. And I'm also finding that these Zoom meetings are very, very effective and efficient. When you, at the drop of a hat, want to have an urgent meeting, this works very well. And we had never done this in the past, right? In the past, if you wanted an urgent meeting, you'll send one email saying, hey, we need to get a find me in this conference room or whatever, and we all meet. And that was a very inefficient way of doing it today. And I remember we all had these features on our software system, that if you can quickly have a group conference, you can do this, you can, but nobody used those features because we were so used to only meeting in the physical world. Today,
Yeah.
forced into this virtual world, which actually works better. And even after COVID, I'm sure this is the way we will actually communicate and
Yeah.
have these kind of meetings. So I think that one good thing has come out of it. The other great thing that has come out of this is that because of the digital platforms, a lot of our processes that were done sequentially can be done parallelly. This whole concept of a virtual single window is now a reality. All this time we used to always talk about a single window clearance, a single window for anything and everything, but it never worked efficiently. This is the first time where everyone's been forced to come on to a digital virtual single window and it works.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of good things have come out of it. I think we've also learned that young people who might have lost jobs can repurpose their jobs in the digital world much better. And these are very exciting jobs. I mean, I was just talking to a young pub owner the other day who was saying that, my pub is closed and, it's really worrying because, I don't know when I'm going to open. And then I was talking to him and I said, but why don't you think about when it does open that you must create a safe pub?
Yeah.
Because now everyone's going to be very concerned that when they come to a pub, are they safe or are they going to be infected? So what are you going to do about that? So he started saying, hey, that's a very good idea. I said, why don't you tell me about some good ideas as to how it's going to look like after COVID or even after the lockdown is lifted? And then he, of course, brainstormed with me some really interesting ideas. I said, you should do it. So you see,
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, if you start thinking about new ideas, you can do a lot of exciting things.
Yeah. Yeah. But do you work?
E-pharmacy, things like that.
Sorry?
So many things which were not allowed. Now they've become a necessity.
Yeah. Do you work all the time or do you unwind? And if you do, then how do you unwind?
So, yeah, these days my days are very long, Shraddha. I say I'll have a lot of time on my hands because it's a virtual. It's actually far from that. I find that my night, last night I went to bed at midnight because I was,
Well,
the problem is now everyone around the world has found this nice way of, and had a Zoom call with my US partners in fact, for ALZUMAb itself. And I only went to bed at midnight because we were discussing a lot of things. So I'm just saying that my life has changed. It's a very virtual life, but though I do try and go to the office every day, just to feel that I'm not just in a virtual world. So I do most of the people are not at work, so there are two or three people at work, but still it gives me that satisfaction that I can go back to my office, and I find it easier to work in my office. Um, but other than that, I think my days are long. But I also, at the same time, I'm much healthier because I exercise a lot more in the mornings. I have a little more time in the mornings to exercise, and I eat better because I'm not socializing.
Kiran, I will say this on behalf of India, in behalf of all of us, that you, in this time, also bring Asha ki Kiran with the drug, and I hope that goes on to create
Thank,
huge impact. Very proud. Thank
thank
you.
you, Shraddha. Thank you so much.